The purpose of this video is to show you the basic steps of home brewing using a very simple homebrewer's kit. The very first thing you want to do is, before you start brewing, is make sure everything is clean. You need to have a good high quality sanitizer and sanitize every piece of equipment that you have and stand it off to the side and let it drip dry. The first step is to fill your kettle with 2.5 gallons of water and begin to heat it up. Next, you take the grain, the crushed grain that came in your kit, and it helps to have somebody hold the mesh bag, dump the grain into the bag. Man, that smells good.
That does smell good. Like pizza crust with that.
Tie a knot on the top and then drop it into your water that is being heated up currently. You want to steep the grain. That means keep the grain in the water as it's being heated for about 20 minutes or up to 170 degrees.
You don't brew on Sunday morning, so I'm drinking beer with it.
Once you hit 20 minutes, 170 degrees is the time to take the grains out and then bring your water to a full boil. The best way to take the steep grains I found is a pair of long barbecue tongs, because as you know, boiling water is very hot. So grab it with the tongs, pull the steep grains out and discard it, set it in a Tupperware container, a garbage can, or whatever. After you've pulled your bag of steep grains out, then you want to bring your water up to a full boil. Once it gets up to a full boil, it's time to add in the malt that came with your kit. The liquid malt is like cold syrup, so it's best if you can warm it up a bit so it flows easier. I like to put mine in the sink with hot water for a couple minutes before I dump it in. It sure seems to pour out much easier. Once you've poured your liquid malt in, go back, pour a little hot water in there and shake it up. Try and get all of the malt dissolved so you can get it all into your wort. It's also helpful if you have an extra person cut the dry malt and dump it in as someone else is stirring it so you get it all broke up. Once you've brought your wort back to a boil, now is the time to start adding the hops that has come with your kit. My particular kit came with 3 different types of hops. The first hop is supposed to be put in right at the very beginning of the boil and boil for 60 minutes. These hops give it a very robust flavor. After the first hops are put in, we wait another 30 minutes and add the second pouch of hops. This also adds a little bit to the flavor. Now my third package of hops goes in 15 minutes before the end of the boil, which basically after 45 minutes. The last packet of hops gives it the aromatics, the smell, so to speak. I put in 1 tablet of wort in the last 15 minutes of the boil. What this does is clears the beer as it's fermenting, so you end up with a much clearer bottle of beer. After your 60-minute boil is finished, now it's time to cool that wort off as fast as possible. You can do it 2 ways. You can bring it in, you can set the container inside a sink full of ice, or I have a wort chiller that works out quite well. Set the wort chiller inside the wort, hook it up to your faucet and run cold water through it. This cools the wort much faster than putting it in a bath of ice. And it's very important to get it cooled as fast as possible to maintain the flavor of the beer. When I bring my pot in, my pot has a very thick bottom, so I like to put a little cold water in the bottom of my sink, which helps the cooling process. Okay, once you've used your wort chiller to cool your wort down to 100 degrees or less, now it's time to put 2 gallons of cold water into your primary fermenter bucket. And we transfer the cooled wort into our primary fermenter bucket. And we put our lid on, our seal, and also our airlock in the top right now, because what we need to do now is to shake it back and forth and put as much oxygen into that wort as possible. This will help facilitate the yeast and the fermentation. The airlock is designed to do just what it says, keep the air out. We fill the airlock with a little bit of sanitized water, and we put that in the top lid. What that does is it keeps the air from getting in and ruining your fermentation, but it also lets the CO2 out that is given off during the fermentation process. Okay, after you've shaken your wort back and forth and got it aerated, we take the lid back off and we check the temperature. As long as the temperature of that wort is 78 degrees or below, it's time to pitch our yeast. So we sanitize our yeast packet, open it up, and we sprinkle it, covering the whole top. Once we have our yeast in, we can cover the lid, push our lid back on tight, put on our airlock, set it off in the corner in a place where the temperature is going to be roughly between 65 and 70 degrees, and in about 24 hours you should start fermenting and bubbling out that airlock. What you just saw was basic brewing techniques for the startup home brewer. Thanks for watching.